Hey everyone, let's talk about The Little Things, which is a new movie streaming right now on HBO Max. It's also in theaters in the US, even though there's not that many theaters open right now. This is Warner Brothers and HBO Max's second movie to have this simultaneous theater release as well as be on streaming. The first one was Wonder Woman 1984. It sounds like that one actually did drive quite a few new subscribers to the platform. I don't know that this one's going to do the same, but let's get into it, shall we? Let's talk about whether The Little Things is worth watching. Spoilers ahead for The Little Things. The Little Things stars Denzel Washington as Joe Deacon, who plays a sheriff's deputy in Kern County, California, who then gets caught up in another case in his own stomping grounds in Los Angeles. He's joined by Jim Baxter, who's played by Rami Malek, who's trying to solve a serial murder case. And Jim Baxter really looks up to Joe Deacon and really wants to get him involved in the whole case that he's investigating, even though the rest of the department is not so much on the Joe Deacon train on account of some mysterious, unexplained history that Joe Deacon has with them. So overall, I think this movie isn't particularly good or interesting. I think The Little Things takes place in the 90s, and it very much feels like a 90s cop drama. You know, it has all the components of 90s cop drama, and there's very little new that it has to add to that genre, in my opinion. The performances are kind of a mixed bag. Denzel is always charismatic, always compelling no matter what. But I think Rami Malek and Jared Leto are like horribly miscast. Jared Leto's creepy enough, but Rami Malek, I mean, this is a guy where when you see him in this role, my immediate question is he the killer, even though he's the detective that's supposed to be solving the crime? And of course, if you've seen the end of the movie, you know that the question of is he the killer is actually a pretty good one. So I think the casting just doesn't really make much sense. And as I'm watching this movie, trying to figure out like why are 3 Academy Award winners why did they agree to appear in this film? There's nothing about it that felt special or that introduced any new ideas that we haven't already seen many times before. In particular, in one movie that this movie seems to be almost completely imitating, but we'll get to that in a little bit. There's a lot of issues with this movie. One of the things that's a big problem is, as I've already indicated, like there's this kind of mysterious past that Joe Deacon has, and you don't really know what it is until the end of the film. And this is supposed to be one of those things where, like, oh, once you understand it, it like explains all the events of the film, and so like I guess you gotta watch it again to really fully understand. But at the end of the day, what the result is, your first viewing is you're pretty confused about like what is going on, like why is Denzel Washington's character so tortured? So from a storytelling perspective, they're preserving that to give you like the surprise element at the end, like, haha, did you know that it was this? And it's like, no, I didn't know, but now I can contextualize this whole performance. But like, what was I doing for the last 2 hours? Speaking of which, there's absolutely no reason this movie needs to be over 2 hours long. So that's one issue, is like this mysterious past. It's played so that it's like a big twist, but it kind of robs the rest of the film of its drama and an appreciation of what Joe Deacon as a character is going through. But the second thing that's a big problem with this film is that there's a saying that we all learned when we were kids. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. And that's kind of what I think this movie suffers from, right? Like, talking about the end of this film, we discover, spoilers, that Joe Deacon, the reason he got taken out of the force is because he accidentally killed one of the intended victims of this serial killer that they're tracking. And Rami Malek's character accidentally kills somebody who he suspects of being the serial killer. So these two cops are united, you know, the past and the future, it echoes, it rhymes, whatever, by the fact that they've both accidentally killed an innocent person. We are currently in an era where we as a society are, I think, starting to more closely evaluate how images of police have shaped our attitudes. And this is something that was very obvious in 2020. I think a lot of people are starting to reconsider, like, hey, should police be basically the protagonist of 90+% of all of our media and therefore be overall pretty charismatic, people you empathize with, people who you are rooting for? And I think a lot of shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and other shows and films have started to like reevaluate this. You won't find any of that contemplation in a movie like The Little Things, though, because I think the problem here, right, is that these are cops who do horrible things. They cover for each other, and they are tortured about it. So they do brood, you know, they do feel bad, but ultimately the ending, right, is about Denzel Washington's character, Joe Deacon, absolving Jim Baxter, right, the Rami Malek character, like sending him this barrette, and it's like, hey, Jared Leto was the killer, and it's like, well, yeah, it's nice that you tried to make him feel better, but you're both kind of like bad people who have escaped the consequences of your actions. And the way the movie frames it, it's not like, hey, everything's great, but it's like these people have some kind of closure. Like Denzel's going to continue shouldering the burdens of the world and of his past, and Rami Malek's going to go and live a wonderful life with his wife and kids. I mean, the real problem is, in reality, the Jim Baxter character would have accidentally killed the suspect and just said, hey, the guy pulled a gun on me. I mean, that's really how it would have played out, right? And so the movie does nothing to interrogate how problematic police are in general as an institution. Not saying they don't contribute a lot to society, but I think that in an era in which we are more critically thinking about these things, this movie adds nothing to the conversation and arguably takes stuff away from the conversation. There's a commonly known factoid about the David Fincher movie Se7en, that Denzel Washington was almost in that movie. He was actually originally supposed to play Detective Mills, the Brad Pitt character, which is wild to think about, like just the idea, like imagine Se7en, but Denzel Washington was in it. So that movie didn't happen, and it has felt like Denzel Washington has been trying to make that movie ever since, right? He's started all these like serial killer movies, and it feels like that journey is coming to an end with The Little Things, because of all the movies that he's been in, this is the one that most closely adheres to the Se7en storyline. You got an old, grizzled, wizened, jaded detective that's played by Denzel Washington, and he's like meeting up with this young, idealistic guy played by Rami Malek, and the Rami Malek guy really looks up to the old guy, and they're solving this serial killer crime. The serial killer is like really gruesome, and they're like trying to put the pieces together. And it all culminates with this drive out into the desert where one of them kills a suspect. And it's just like, the similarities are like impossible to ignore, except imagine if Kevin Spacey in Se7en didn't do the crime. And that's basically what happens at the end of this movie is Jared Leto, I think it's like meant to be interpreted that Jared Leto's character did not actually kill anyone. And so this movie asks the question, what if the serial killer wasn't guilty and Mills murdered the suspect? And it's like, okay, well then you end up with a pretty problematic pair of cops who are trying to escape the consequences of their actions, and no incredible direction and stylish cinematography from David Fincher and cinematographer Darius Kanji from the movie Se7en. So at the end of the day, this feels like a pretty empty style exercise. I did not enjoy the film, but I am curious what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed The Little Things. Hit me up in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, hit like or subscribe. I will say one other thing, which is that I am much less angry that I saw this movie at home than if I'd paid money to see it in a theater during January, during one of the typical dump months where they unload these bad movies into the theaters. Streaming from home, it's like, hey, I got to hang out with some cool folks on my Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Chen while I was watching it, and I got to enjoy the movie and make a little YouTube video about it. So, no real skin off my back, but this is the benefit of watching HBO Max movies in the streaming era. I hope you had a similarly inoffensive experience. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all of my patrons for supporting videos like these, and we will see you in the next one.